how writers elaborate or say more. In the next few weeks, we're going to teach you several strategies for elaborating in informational writing. Today, we just want for you to practice saying more in your writing. Let's imagine this conversation. How was your weekend? Good. Can you elaborate? What does he mean when he asks her to elaborate? He wants for her to say more. He wants to know why her weekend was good. What did she do? Who did she hang out with? It's your job as a writer to elaborate on your thinking, to say more. So your assignment today is to write one fairly lengthy paragraph. We want for you to practice elaborating or saying more. So it's going to be lengthy because you are practicing saying more. You have two options for what you can write that paragraph about. So your first option is to go back to activity 1. Remember, in activity 1, you generated a list of about 15 to 20 facts about something you were wondering about. And then you grouped those facts into paragraphs. So you could choose today to write about one of those paragraphs. So that's option 1. If you do not want to write about what you did research on for activity 1, your second option is to write about either a hobby or something that you know a lot about. So either of those will work for practicing elaborating or saying more. So I'm actually going to be writing about my second paragraph, which was one of the benefits of rain barrels is that it reduces stormwater runoff. So what I did was I just started writing. And what I found is that when I started writing, I ended up with a fairly simple, short paragraph. But I want to elaborate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break up that simple paragraph that I wrote, and I want to see if I can say more. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask myself, can you say more about that? So here's the beginning of my paragraph. One of the benefits of a rain barrel is that it's good for the environment. When it rains in a city like Seattle, that rain carries chemicals and other pollutants into the bodies of water. This pollution is called stormwater runoff. So I asked myself, can you say more about that? Do you know anything else about stormwater runoff? Well, I do. I could actually explain that in more detail, so that's what I did. In nature, when it rains, the water hits the ground and is filtered through soil. The soil cleans the rainwater, so when it enters bodies of water like rivers or lakes, it is water that is healthy for fish and other wildlife. The problem with cities is that we've built surfaces like parking lots and roads that water can't filter through. So all of that water flows into gutters. Roads and parking lots have lots of chemicals on them that pollute the water and are dangerous for fish. So I can move on to my next idea, but I actually think I can say more. I know an example of how those chemicals are hurting wildlife because I was reading an article about the coho salmon. So I elaborated and I said, for example, Seattle's population of coho salmon has been declining because of the chemicals that run off of the Montt Lake Bridge and into the Puget Sound. The chemicals from our car tires kill the fish. So I actually was able to not only explain the idea of stormwater runoff in more detail, but I was able to provide an example, which is a great elaboration technique. So now here's my next idea. Rain barrels collect the water that would otherwise flow across concrete surfaces and pollute rivers and lakes. So that's how they help. Well, I stopped and asked myself, can you say more about that? Can you elaborate? So I'm going to talk about how. One rain barrel will not solve the problem of stormwater runoff, yet it can help. One rain barrel can collect up to 55 gallons of rain. So that's how it can help, is that it collects that rain. I I think I can elaborate even more. That 55 gallons of water that is 55 gallons of water that isn't carrying toxic chemicals into the Puget Sound. Instead, it's watering gardens. And then here's my concluding sentence. That's how rain barrels could help reduce stormwater runoff. So what I want for you to do today as you start to write is I just want you to stop and ask yourself, can I say more about that? Is there other information that I can add? Do I have an example? Can I tell a story from my own experience? Can I add more detail? So when you submit your assignment, I want to see a fairly lengthy paragraph. I want to see how you've built on each of your ideas and really said more. Get started.